Hey y'all, okay, new moon in Leo. Happy Lamas for those that celebrate such things. And another word for that is high summer. So that can mean different things to different people, of course, but it's when the sun is in the middle of Leo and we get to really celebrate the beauty of the summer. The energy of the seasons, it comes from the middle of the season and it radiates outwards. So if you're at all inclined towards paganism, what happens is the energy of summer is not expressed by the sun going into Cancer, which is a water sign. It's expressed mostly by the sun being in Leo and radiating out from there, just like fall has to do with Samhain and the sun in Scorpio, and springtime being Beltane and so forth. So this is high summer. This is the new moon on August 4th, first thing in the morning. This is a power time, and the energy of Leo is very demonstrative. I love that word. It has demon in it, and it also has just that sense of really coming to the forefront. And so now's the time to really pour it on. This is a time when people might not be looking at their e-communications as much because it's a very experiential time. So Leo exemplifies that creativity, fun and games, pleasure, joy, love, all that yummy stuff is contained in the sign Leo. Now, a lot of us, we all have different relationships with that. Because, for example, I was born in February, and those of us born in February, August is our downtime. It's a time to like surrender. So in my case, as an Aquarian Piscean cusp, I surrendered to summer by way of, oh, screw it, I'm just going to have fun. And so there's a lot of you out there that are, going beyond politics and going beyond the day-to-day worries and exemplarizing the fun that can be had. And I highly recommend that. So this being the new moon, it's a new beginnings into that phase of fun and games and all that, which plays out for the second half of the summer. So with that in mind, there's a couple of other things that are going on here. So first of all, Leo has the creativity and the love aspect, but very much drama as well. Venus has just Venus is in Leo right now, but it's about to enter Virgo. So there's going to be kind of a serious side as well that's going to be played into. Now, there are two really important aspects that are worth talking about right now. And bear in mind when I do these talks, it's kind of a general overview rather than advice for each of the 12 signs, because people are complex and you should get your own reading. This is my talks are designed as a way to stimulate you to be curious enough to get your own readings, because people are affected differently by the aspects that are going on at any given time. And so right now, though, the ones that affect everybody are two things this month. One is Mercury being going retrograde right now. So here it is, new moon today, August 4th, and Mercury also is going retrograde today. Is retrograde first in Virgo and then in Leo as it moves backwards. And this is all as seen from the Earth. It appears to be moving backwards, and there are people who are kind of a little bit more anal who are like, oh, but it's not really moving backwards. Well, our subjective experience here on Earth is that it is moving backwards, as seen from the Earth, where we all live. Hopefully, we don't live on the sun. We live geocentrically on the Earth, and so Mercury slows down to a stop and is starting to move backwards. So gets a little taste of Mercury in Virgo, which is like basically the last week, and has been a time of really looking at the possibilities of organizing our affairs and moving into the next steps. And then Mercury goes into retrograde today, August 4th, and then it moves backwards into Leo once more. Now, one thing about that is people who are late baby boomers and who are like my age, who are in their, let's say age 60 to 75, Mercury is going to go back and forth several times, probably 3 times, in the next few weeks across your Pluto. Mercury conjunct Pluto, which is a whole transformation of the mind. It's very significant. So those of us who are elders are going to be really, readdressing things and looking at things really differently. Now, different scenarios for people of different age groups and all, but that one stands out, and that's one that I can point out to everyone born from about 1950, well, really about 1950 to 1965 or so. And so there's a whole timing about that, and you can expect, as I did, that your whole affairs of life are just being reshuffled at this time. Now, a lot of people have a lot of fear or apprehension about Mercury retrograde, which happens 3 times a year for 3 weeks at a shot, usually 23 days. And Mercury retrograde is nothing to be afraid of. It's kind of in style to talk about, oh, watch out, Mercury's going retrograde, and it's a brain melt time. It's a time when there can be communication breakdowns. It's not a great time to be signing contracts. So there's a lot of mental matters which are not well advised at this time. And you bear in mind that everybody who has strong Gemini or Virgo in their chart is ruled by Mercury. Furthermore, a lot of us have Mercury conjunct the Sun as well, if not Moon or rising. So what happens is basically 80% of the people or whatever have a very strong Mercury. So we're very mentally adept. We're very communicative. We think too much would be another way to say it. And particularly with Mercury, and you combine it with all this Leo stuff, there can be kind of, some fretting in the air, or the combination of like worrying about things and then going, oh, forget about that. I think I'll go, go to this festival or go to this other thing and just, as Bob Marley says, forget your troubles and dance, and that's all well and good. But Mercury retrograde is not something to be feared about, because it's a natural exhale of the mind. I believe any retrograde of any planet, and bear in mind Neptune's retrograde, Saturn's retrograde, Uranus retrograde, any retrograde is a natural exhale to the inhale. So we always are looking at developing more and more, and growing the economy, growing our spectrum, growing our lives. But there's times of integration, and that's what the retrogrades are for. Because retrograde, anything, is about integrating the experience that's already happening. So that's really key. And then another thing that's really key to this is that some of us are born with Mercury retrograde, which sometimes can have a say in learning disabilities, but it's also people who learn and communicate very differently. In my case, with my Mercury retrograde, you may notice I talk for a living. I have a very mercurial chart, and my family is all Geminis and Virgos. And we were very, very directed to be very mental growing up. And, you can throw that in that my dad was a newspaper editor, and my mom was a very stimulating Gemini, would be a good way to say it. So, the training being very much Mercury. And so Mercury, when it's retrograde in the chart, in the horoscope, and bear in mind, like almost 20% of us have Mercury retrograde. If you email me, I will tell you if you have Mercury retrograde, free of charge. But so some of us have Mercury retrograde, and Mercury retrograde in the horoscope gives a very very unique and strong gifts having to do with how we see things mentally. for example, I'm really good with numbers, not so good with names. So there's, we all have different talents. So Mercury retrograde in the birth chart allows one to develop in non-conventional, non-linear ways in terms of our mind and our communication. And then those of us who are born under Mercury retrograde, we tend to be really focused under that Mercury retrograde that's all about, for 80% of the population, it's all about communication breakdown. It's all about challenges in the mind. It's all about being spacey and so forth like that. Not so with Mercury retrograde people. I know a person that's very close to me that every time Mercury goes retrograde, you can kind of set a stopwatch on it, and she is suddenly like very communicative mentally, and also wants to write her cookbook and all this other stuff. And then, 3-4 weeks later, when Mercury goes direct, which means forward, suddenly she's like, oh yeah, put that on the back burner. So those of us who have Mercury retrograde, it's a hyper communicative time. So I'm looking forward to doing lots of readings here in the hot sun and in this environment and all that, because I love Mercury retrograde, and I'm in the minority there, but so what? I love Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograde from August 4th until August 28th this month, and and it starts out Mercury in Virgo, ruling place. So as of today, the new moon, we're experiencing sort of the tide going out and going in another direction of Mercury moving back into Leo, intersecting with the sun and moon over the next short while. Just a real resetting of mental parameters. So again, Bob Marley, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. That's one of the advices that I could give about Mercury retrograde at this time. Figure out what you need to let go of in your mind, not just not the doing so much as the integration. And that's really key to making your peace with Mercury retrograde. Now, the other thing that I need to talk about today is Jupiter and Saturn. So these are a planetary pair. Saturn is about constriction and definition and boundaries and defining terms and all that. Saturn is in Pisces for the last year and for the next year. Saturn in Pisces is a hard one to describe because it's kind of a fish out of water sort of a thing, where Saturn is all about discipline and form and commitment, and then Pisces is the nebulous, the more ethereal. So Saturn in Pisces, the people who I know, who I've done horoscopes for, who are born with Saturn in Pisces, and that would be people born about 1965 to 68, and also about 1994, 95, somewhere in there. People born natally with Saturn in Pisces, they have a hard time figuring out what their career is, what their life goal is, that sort of thing. But you know what? The other side of that is you can visualize anything. You can make it happen. You are free from the constraints of logic with Saturn and Pisces. So that's good news too. So in addition to that, there's Jupiter. Jupiter is the opposite planet of Saturn, just like Sun and Moon are a pair, Venus and Mars are a pair, Jupiter and Saturn are a pair. So Jupiter is how we expand and grow and broaden our horizons. And Jupiter is in Gemini right now. So this is really good for surprise, communication, outreach, making that connection. But Jupiter, which is not looking at a retrograde at any time in the future, Jupiter is moving forward, but perhaps bringing in too much abundance. Like life is too short sort of thing. The summer is too short, all that. So Jupiter and Gemini can bring an abundance of ideas, communication, new concepts and all that. And so Jupiter moves through Gemini. It's right in the middle of Gemini this month. And Mars, by the middle of the month, Mars conjuncts Jupiter. So it's going to be really a lot of mental stimulation at the same time Mercury is retrograde. Should be interesting. And one of the things, of course, there's this election and the Uranian aspects of that, which I'm reveling in the joy of, because, people always want to know about the election and ask me about it, and I tend to not want to talk about it because I'm a partisan and have opinions. And but anyway, the Uranian aspects of the unforeseen and unexpected are big right now. But in addition to that, the Jupiter thing, Jupiter moving through Gemini, and then at the same time Saturn is retrograding through Pisces, right through the middle of it. So Saturn retrograding in Pisces would be dissolving old commitments, old agreements, old parameters. And then Jupiter moving forward in Gemini, well, what happens is in the middle of the month, just as Mars conjuncts Jupiter, so that's sort of like being really wired, being really yang, having a lot of ideas that have wings and have thoughts, and it's a really good time to inspire new things. But the catch is that Jupiter squares Saturn for a lot of this month, and so Jupiter squares Saturn. It's kind of like the watch out for biting more than you can chew. A need to organize your visions, and so could be a great time for outpouring of new ideas and for mass communication and for mass networking, but not fine-tuning the details of things. That's key, because here I'm saying something which seems contradictory to the fact that Mercury is retrograde. But no, as far as concepts go, and as far as like bringing in the abundance of what is possible, it's all about that. Now, as far as like the logistics of carrying that out, well, Jupiter square Saturn would mean, a lot of juggling at this time. So if you know how to juggle your own personal affairs and your communications and your commitments, this is a time to do that. And this is a time to recognize the changes that are going on and full steam ahead with the ability to release yourself from the past and move into the future. But the future is not defined right now. This is not the time. August, not the time to define your future. It's the time to talk about possibilities and ideas and to schmooze with people. So happy Lamas, happy schmoozing. Get your personal reading from me. I love to do it, and Saturn's conjunct my Mercury right now, so I'm on board, and this is a wonderful time to be on the planet, because we're being released from the past and we get to dream the future, and I think that is very very stimulating. I'm looking forward to it. So wishing you all well. Happy high summer.